as in the arsenal of the Venetians. In winter, the sticky pitch for caking their unsound vessels is boiling, because they cannot sail then. And instead, one builds his ship anew, and another plugs the ribs of his that has made many a voyage. One hammers at the prow, and another at the stern. This one makes oars, that one twists ropes, another patches jib and mainsail, so not by fire, but by divine art. A thick pitch was boiling there below, which overbulged the bank on every side. Dante's Inferno. The mystical floating city of Venice has inspired many generations and continues to be one of the most visited cities, for good reason. Tourists are drawn to a stunning blend of Gothic and Renaissance architecture, open-air markets, infamous gondolas, and the turquoise, glistening waters. To the first settlers of these unpromising and marshy islands, however, in the 5th century BC, it seemed as though any attempt at civilization was doomed. Yet, despite this, the inhabitants mastered their unlivable terrain and built a society that would dominate the known world and form one of the greatest maritime empires. The Venetian Empire, however, is bookended by the fortunes of other prominent empires, forming in the wake of the crumbling Roman Empire and ending with the rise of Napoleon and the Austrian Habsburgs. When a vast raiding army of Lombards entered northern Italy in 568, those who managed to evade death or capture hastily made their way to the islands of the lagoon. Initially, these refugees only sought temporary refuge on these islands, but this quickly dropped. The Veneti, seeing the extent of the destruction on the mainland at the hands of the Germanic raids, opted to stay and utilize the 3 miles of water between them and the mainland as the world's largest moat. It is said, for instance, that the Lombards and many of the Germanic raiders lacked any naval technology, and so they were safe and sound. And so with this, Venice was born. But not really, though. Historians regard this influx of refugees to the island as a transformative period. Not much is known about the origins of those who had already inhabited the islands for hundreds of years, but many of them were fishermen, salt miners, and transporters who had formed a relatively poor yet self-sufficient economy. Nevertheless, with so many arrivals, the social and physical structure of Venice was to drastically change. One of the immediate issues the settlers had to contend with, rather ironically, was water. Fresh water was unavailable. Although the brine-ridden water of Venice was advantageous for salt mining, it meant that fresh water was scarce. The only source at the time was rainwater, and thus to depend on it, the Venetians had to systemize its collection. As such, a hydraulic system and rigorous social discipline was upheld for everyone's benefit. Though through desperation, therefore, the Venetians created a symbiotic relationship with the marsh and sea. Swamp dredging and coastal reinforcement was required to tame the area, and a nuanced approach to building construction had to be formed to build civilization. Alongside this determination of which the Venetians are known for to this day, the Venetians were renowned for their piety. Venice's earliest churches, inspired by the Orthodox faith of Byzantium, show multiple extensions and enhancements over a short period of time, which demonstrates this rapidly developing community and pious religiosa. In the first century of Venice's history, the city could not necessarily be defined as one. Rather, it was a group of communities with a loose political tie to one another. Nevertheless, the overarching imperial imposition of these communities were the Byzantines. And in 584, they formed Venice into a duchy, with Ravenna as its capital. Even here, however, Venice as we know has not properly been established. Scholars only begin to recognize Venice from 697. Here, each community was ruled by a dux, or a chief magistrate, otherwise known in Italian as a doge. The first doge was Paolo Lucio Anafesto, and under him a process of unification was undertaken. Over the course of the 7th century, communities began to develop into permanent settlements, and leading families formed administrative offices. It was not until 751, however, when Ravenna fell and relinquished its power over Venice, that the city gained its autonomy. Two further events aided in forming the identity of these people. In 810, the regional governor appointed by the Byzantine emperor relocated to the city, which served to demonstrate the prominence of Venice as a political and administrative hub. With a new duchy capital, a flood of settlers, sailors, and builders rushed to fortify the city and develop its infrastructure. An influx of population was also seen in favour of Venice. This event was compounded by an event of symbolic significance that helped form the city's iconography: the arrival of St. Mark's body. In Venice today, everywhere you can see the symbol of the lion. The association to the lion comes from St. Mark, the patron saint of Venice. But although the arrival is profoundly connected to the rising prominence of the city, Mark had no connection to Venice and was actually born in Alexandria, Egypt. Nevertheless, in 829, Venetian merchants stole the body under the pretext that Muslims were about to desecrate the body and the shrine he was held in. They brought the body to Venice, where it was met with crowds of supporters, pilgrims, and venerators. The Venetians then capitalized on this, which served as a divine indication of their independence. As such, this tiny little community, this tiny little collection of islands, was now growing into a prominent political power, which was bolstered by theological power. These twin forces drove the development of the Republic. Alongside this, they slowly but surely evolved into the naval powerhouse it would soon become. Despite its size, it would become the envy of many naval and militaristic powers of its time. Venice was a jewel to be envied. It was a serene city of peace, absent of political turmoil and instability that was affecting other European cities. It was prosperous through trade and had created a community which coexisted in harmony. And whilst not aggressive, they were anything but a pushover and highly capable. And so there we have it, the genesis of this incredible, incredible city. One which is so unique in its connections to Europe, and through its desperation, evolved and made itself highly capable, unlike any other city, because it couldn't rely on the agriculture, the arable economy that so many others did. So it had to become so inventive in order to survive. And so there we are, part 1 of our Venice series, the Genesis. Next, we will be looking at its peak, its heyday, its maintenance, how the Republic began, how it was ran and maintained, before then a final episode about its fall at the hands of Napoleon and the Austrian Habsburgs. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Daily Medieval Podcast.